Okay, so let's go. So this is the Fresh Start group. As you can see there, our Kleeneze training webinar, and tonight we're covering team building for beginners. As you can see there, I do 8 different trainings. We started 2 or 3 weeks ago with getting started and your first 4 weeks, so I was mainly concentrating on the catalogue side, a bit about building your customer base, and tonight we're going to start talking about team building. As you can see, there's 8 in the series altogether, and I record all of these webinars, and I'll tell you at the end how to find them for those of you that don't yet know. And so if you find that at the moment you're just getting started, for example, then you can go back and look at one of the ones about getting started and just pick that up at the time that's sort of most suitable to you. So tonight, what are we going to cover? So basically it's all about team building, and we're going to be covering, firstly, do you have to build a team? Secondly, why you should build a team. A bit about what tools you might need, how to get started, rods in the pond, what I mean by that. Those of you who are anglers might have a clue, and obviously those of you who have been in the business for a little while should hopefully know what I'm talking about. But then some good nitty-gritty stuff, really, what to do when you get a lead, information to send to your prospects, and following up, really. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. So, quick question for everybody. Do you have to build a team? Does anybody want to hazard a guess? No, that's true, Tasha. Yes, says Heidi. Any other thoughts? Yeah, not if you don't want to, Seamus. No, but if you want serious money, yes, yeah, very good, yeah. Basically, you're both right. You're all right. Sorry. The answer is no. You don't have to build a team. A lot of people join Kleeneze just for an extra £50 or £100 a week, just putting the catalogues out. So if you don't want to build a team, you don't have to. And most distributors, in fact, don't. But what's important is to know that you can build a team if you want to. And a lot of distributors almost become accidental team builders. And it's amazing the number of times you will have a customer will say to you, can I do that? Have you got any openings for distributors in this area? And so you would, of course, if that happens, you would say yes, and that would be your first team member. So even if you haven't consciously gone out to seek team members, you can almost accidentally become a team builder. So the question really then is not so much do you have to or not, but why should you if you're contemplating it? And obviously one of the reasons is you can get a much bigger income. The idea behind doing lots and lots of catalogues is fantastic. You earn money really quickly doing the catalogue side, but there are some downsides of it, which I'll explain in a moment. If you're relying totally on your own catalogues, and there's some big money out there. Sohail Ahmed was speaking at one of the millionaires meetings that I went to, and just before Christmas I think he did £14,000 worth of business in a 28-day period, and he made £5,000 out of that. So I'm sure that was a pretty good Christmas for him. But if he's ill, or if he decides to take some holiday, there's nobody going to put his catalogues out for him unless he's got a very sort of helpful family. And so his income will drop quite quickly if that happens. And you know how easy is it just to twist an ankle or something, or just to sort of feel a bit under the weather? You don't put your catalogues out. So when you're reliant totally on your own efforts, then there are some risks associated with that. So that's really the reasons why you should try to build a team, because the income then is not just dependent on your own efforts, but also on the work that you've done supporting and introducing new team members. So what tools do you need then to get into team building? Well, not very much, to be honest. EasyReach, which is the telephone training system that we use, is a great little tool, and for 2 reasons really. Firstly, that you get messages down the line. So Gavin sends a message every day from prospects, people who are just joining the business, stories of people who've been in the business for a while. And these stories about, you know, how people started, if they had a tough time getting started and so on, are great to then explain to people. If you're talking to a prospect and he sort of says, oh, well, I might be interested, the only thing is, you know, I work full time anyway, so I'm not sure that, you know, I would have time to do this. And there are loads of stories of people who have built a really big business just evenings and weekends around a full-time job. So if you've got stories like that that you can explain to people, then it makes them think, oh, well, if other people have done that, maybe I could do the same. What else do you need? Okay, you need some kind of diary. So what you'll find when you're getting into calling people up, and people might say to you, oh, I'm busy at the moment, but could we speak in a couple of days? So you need some sort of system, either a notebook kind of diary or a computer. And you also need a lead book, and what I mean by that is just some way of keeping track of the people that you're speaking to. So somewhere to store, names, contact details, addresses, telephone numbers, emails, all that kind of thing. And again, that can be on like a filing system on cards, or on paper if you want to, or on a computer. I find I use a computer a lot, and I find if you're getting a lot of leads and you're trying to go through, like a notebook, trying to look back for one that you might have spoken to recently, that can be quite tricky unless you've got a good filing system in that. So I prefer to use a computer, but it's entirely up to you. It's not essential. It's pretty important to have a telephone, to be honest. If you don't have a telephone, you will struggle. And you need some information to send these prospects. So somebody replies to an advert, or you start talking to them, and then they say, oh yes, I'd be interested, how does it work? And you need to then have something to send them. So just before we talk about what do you send your prospects, here's a little way to get started. And it's very easy, really, very easy way to get started. Start off by just making a list of 10 people that you know. So this could be, it could be anybody. It could be your dentist, it could be brother, sister, mum, dad, cousins, mums at the school, anything like that. Just a list of 10 people that you know. And then what we'll do is you call them up using what we call the third party approach. And this is just a very comfortable way to get started. Basically what you do is you say, hi Sue, it's Graham, whatever your name is. Look, I don't know if you can help me. I've just started this new business that I'm working on, and I've got some information, and I wondered if I was to send it over to you. Would you do me a favour? Have a little look at it, and let me know if you can think of anybody who might be interested. So, and that does two things. But the easy part of that is you're not saying to them, oh hi Sue, you're always skint, you could do with a bit of extra money. Why don't you come and join Kleeneze? Because all that's going to do is get their back up. What you're saying is, we've been friends for a while. Will you do me a favour? See if you can think of anybody who might be interested. So that's just a kind of comfortable way to start getting into the habit of talking to people. And every day you can add more people to that list. So you might start off with 10 people, and then every day you add 2 or 3 more. And in the books that you got from Kleeneze or from the Bids web shop, if you started up in the Buzz team, they all include a kind of memory jogger. So just some reminders of the sorts of people that you might know that you might forget about. And then the other important part of this, and I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a moment, is following them up. So once you've sent them the information, give them a day or two to have a look at it, and then just ring them up and say, what did you think? Could you think of anybody that might be interested? Now, the important thing about this is actually, well, you are interested if you know anybody, but the really important part about this is you're just letting these people know that you have a way to earn a bit of extra money. They may not need it now. They may, their circumstances might be fine. But in 6 months' time, if they get their hours cut at work, or there's redundancies going round, or maybe somebody gets pregnant and so they've got extra mouth to feed, they might think, gosh, I wonder if Graham still does that Kleeneze thing. I'll give him a call back. So you're kind of sowing your seeds at this point. Oh, look at that, sowing your seeds. Just as I said, you'd almost think I knew what I was going to be talking about. Okay, so that's a kind of easy way to get started, really. The next step is to think about what we call fish pond activity. And fish pond activity involves, as you might guess, fishing. Now, quick question. I don't know if any of you are serious anglers. I think that's what you call fishermen these days. But if you've ever seen anglers fishing from the beach or on by a river or at the end of a pier, have you ever noticed how many fishing rods they use? Any guesses? Anybody got any experience of dangling off a pier? Yep, Helen says 1. Anyone else got any guesses? 2 or 3 from Eric? Good point. 3 says Tracy. Yep, I think actually the point is more than 1. Oops. Oh, sorry, yep, I've skipped a bit there. So yeah, the way we think about prospects, if you like, people out there in the wide world who might be interested in earning a bit of extra money, is that there's lots of them out there. Just like lots of fish in the sea or in the river or in the lake. And serious anglers use a variety of different ways of trying to catch those fish. So they might have a fishing rod with a wiggly worm on the end that sits near the top. They might have a fishing rod with a bit of bread that goes a bit deeper, because different kinds of fish might eat different things and swim in different parts of the river. And it's exactly the same with people out there in the wide world. So, a couple of bits that are useful before you start advertising. I think it's good to get a domain name, something that you can put on your business cards or leaflets or other bits of advertising that we're going to talk about in a moment. And the domain name, there's all sorts of different things. I use the one called Fresh Start Success, but lots of people have ones like earnextramoney.com or improveyourlifestyle.com or anything like that. Just something that's kind of more memorable, if you like. You will also find it useful at some point, maybe not at the beginning, but at some point, once you start doing this seriously, in investing in a piece of software called a contact manager and autoresponder. These are basically just bits of software. Andrew and Amanda, a good question. A contact manager is basically the software that just keeps a list of all of the leads that have come in. So you could have a look at it and see, okay, I've got 43 people who've replied to my adverts. I can see there's somebody here, Graham from Luton, and I've got a Susan from St Albans, and with all their details in there, so you don't have to refer back to pieces of paper. An autoresponder is normally just a bit of software that goes with the contact manager and allows you to automatically send emails to those people. So you might set it up so that it sends them an email as soon as they reply to your advert, before you've even called them. Or you might set it up so that once you've called them and you've maybe ticked a box to say yes, they'd like the information, then it maybe sends them an email initially, and a couple of days later maybe sends an email saying, what did you think? And then a couple of days after that sends something saying, have you looked at this? And so on. So it's kind of an automatic way of sending emails. And the beauty of it is you can customize it so that it sends the emails with their names on. So one person will get, hi John, how are you? The next person will get, hi Sue, how are you? The next person will get, hi Graham, how are you? So it's much more personalized, and people tend to open those emails a lot more. Hope that makes sense. I hope that answered your question, Andrew and Amanda. Okay, so some kind of domain name and website would be useful, and big advertising do a good sort of set there that they can help you with that. But speak to your upline if you're not familiar with how that bit all works. So other rods in the pond, other areas where you can advertise or find people who might want a bit of extra money. So your warm list we've already talked about. Shop window adverts are another good way of just attracting people's attention. You can buy cards from bids. You can make your own just with little blank postcards, handwritten ones. You can deliver leaflets. Leafleting an area is a great way to get started with team building. Guys, can I just check? Can everyone still hear me okay? I've just got an error message come up on my screen, and I don't quite know whether it's causing a problem. I'm just going to pause a minute just to check. Here, okay. Okay, I'm guessing not.
Welcome to any meeting. The line is now unmuted.
Guys, sorry, I'm back now. I don't know if you can hear me again. I was happily chatting away. Good. Thanks, guys. I was happily chatting away to myself there, thinking, I haven't seen any questions for a while. Now, you're going to have to bear with me here because I have no idea at what point you couldn't hear me. Let me just go back. Okay. Right, sorry about that. I'll start again. Where did we get to? Talking about autoresponder, fantastic. Thanks, Adele. Let me find that again. Right. So sorry, did you get Andrew and Amanda asked me a question about the difference between a contact manager and an autoresponder? Did you hear me reply to that? Cool. Right, okay, I'll do that then. I spent 20 minutes giving you this fantastic... Sorry. Anyway, yes, sorry. A contact manager is basically a piece of software that keeps a track of or a list of all of the people who have replied to your adverts. So rather than you having to remember them all or put them all in a file or in a notebook, the contact manager will just keep a list of them all. And the information you would hold might be their name, telephone number, address, email address, that sort of thing. An autoresponder normally goes with the contact manager, and that basically is a way of automatically sending emails to those people in that list or a group of those people. So the email that you might want to send, you might sort of have an email that you send to them immediately that they've replied to an advert. Or you might want to set it up so that it doesn't reply to them immediately, but once you've spoken to them and you had a bit of a chat, you then tick a little box and it sends them the email automatically. And then maybe 2 days later it will send them an email saying, what did you think? And then a couple of days after that, maybe another email saying, have you had any more thoughts, or whatever. You can kind of customize it and set it all up. Good question there. The costs for this, they vary. To be honest, I don't use big advertising myself. I actually recommend it just because it's kind of quite a good one to use. I had a particular requirement to use something different. They start off at around about, oh gosh, £10 or £15 a month, something like that. And the more contact you hold in it, so the more space you're having, and maybe the more facilities you use, then it can go up to £20 or £30 a month. You don't need one to get started, but I would say once you get past, Kate, fantastic. Yeah, so £10, probably less than £10 a month to get started, and then once you've got more than probably 20 or 30 responses, then you probably do need a smarter way to keep track of them than just bits of paper. So, sorry, moving on from there, the other rods in the pond, so the point I was trying to make earlier about the anglers is that different people will reply to different kinds of adverts. So, some people will reply to a shop window advert, but wouldn't reply to something on the internet. Somebody else might reply to a newspaper advert, but wouldn't reply to a leaflet that comes through their door. So by using a variety of different kinds of adverts, you're going to get a variety of different kinds of people replying to your adverts, and that's what you want, really. So there's a few examples there: shop window adverts, leaflets we talked about, newspaper adverts. Wearing a badge is just a really great, simple way to kind of trigger a conversation while you're stood in a queue or something like that. Having a sign on your car is another great way of doing it, just simply because once it's on there, it gets seen by lots and lots of people, and you don't need to kind of actively do anything. So it's kind of there and just sort of advertising for you constantly. Different kinds of business cards that you can use. Posters work well. I use posters a lot on telegraph poles. So the wooden telegraph poles, you just laminate the poster and stick them on the telegraph pole, and they will often stay there for months and months, and you'll get leads coming through over the time, all from an area where you might be trying to recruit. So that's a good way of focusing your advertising in a particular area. What else is there? So surveys you can do. That's just kind of standing in a sort of busy shopping area, interviewing people. I'm not going to go through all of these. The point I would make with all of these is none of them are free. They either take your time or your money, and it's kind of up to you, really. You just need to decide how you want to invest it. So, for example, a newspaper advert will probably take you 5 minutes to put that in place, but it might cost you £100. What else is your customers is often a good source. It doesn't take you a lot of time, just mentioning to your customers each time you're delivering that you're looking to recruit people across the whole country, because you never know, they might have nieces and nephews or cousins or aunties and uncles or whatever that might be interested. So just a variety of different ways of finding people who might be interested in earning some extra money. And as I've said there, the more rods you use, the more fish you will catch. So this is just a quick summary. If you want a bit more information about any of those, either speak to your upline or speak to me afterwards. I'm quite happy to go through them with you in a bit more detail. So that's generating some leads, basically, finding people that might be interested in earning a bit of extra money. And that's when it starts to get exciting, because what happens when somebody sees your advert and they reply to it? Normally the first thing that happens is, if it's your first time, you go and ring your upline and say, what do I do? But basically what I would recommend is you try to call them within 24 hours. The reason for that is, if somebody's seen an advert, if they're looking for work, then chances are they've seen more than one advert and they've replied to more than one. So if you leave it for 3 or 4 days before you kind of get round to contacting them, they may well have already found something and moved on anyway. So I always say, call them within 24 hours at the most. And don't worry about kind of what you have to say. I've got a script that I follow. I've been doing this for years now, and I still have a little script that I have in front of me. And I don't refer to it very often now, but just every now and again, if I'm not concentrating or something and I kind of lose track of what I was going to say, then just the fact that I've got it there allows me to just quickly refer to what I was going to go through. And there on YouTube, there's a video by Peter Rea. If you go to the Kleeneze channel on YouTube, there's a video by Peter Rea, like a training video, where he talks about what the script that he uses, the words that he says. And mine's based on that. I really like that. So if you want a template to work from, if your own upline doesn't have anything in particular that you want to use, then have a look at what Peter has got to say. But don't worry about making mistakes. Everybody makes lots and lots of mistakes. The daft thing is, you can be absolutely useless at doing this and you will still sign people up, because it's the Kleeneze information that you send them that will persuade them that it's worth joining, not the wording that you're saying particularly. But so basically, the first conversation is just a very brief conversation. You're not trying to explain all about network marketing and the Kleeneze business opportunity over the phone. That's what the videos and the information's for. You're just kind of building a little bit of rapport, having a bit of a chat with them, just saying that you're going to send them some information, and that's it. Really short conversations. As I said, there may be a bit of a summary. You're just asking them, is it okay to send them a bit more information? I've got your email address. Is it okay to send it there? Or some people would prefer it in the post. As I say, I've got a little script that I use, but it's based on Peter Rea's. And just be kind of excited, not over the top, but don't sort of say, "Hi, my name's Chris. You probably won't want to join Kleeneze, but if you're desperate, I'll send you some information." You're not going to get a lot of people joining like that. So just be kind of excited, smiley, happy, and as I said, people join you because they want to sort of join somebody who's enjoying what they're doing, earning some money, having a good lifestyle, and they want to be able to join you so they can learn from you. And then send them that information as soon as possible. You don't want to wait 2 or 3 days before you call them up and then say you're going to send them it, and then 2 or 3 days later you send them the information, because they're just going to have moved on by then. And just don't try and sell it to them over the phone. Just build that bit of rapport, send them the information, and then clarify any questions that they might have. Okay, what kind of information do you send them? So there's lots of different information. I tend to do one of two things. Firstly, I've got an email that I send them that just has a link to the Kleeneze videos. So if you go on YouTube, there's the Kleeneze what am I looking for? Channel, the Kleeneze channel on YouTube with lots of videos on there, all the It Works videos, and also now Kleeneze have set up the the mycleaneasy.com website that every distributor gets. Oh, Tracy, you just said I'm breaking up. Can I just check with everybody else if people can hear me okay? Just got a note there. Tracy says the audio is not very good. But I don't know if that's... Yeah. Okay, thanks Tracy. Hopefully it's just a little internet glitch. So yes, I normally send them an email with links to the videos and so on. And the mycleaneasy.com is a great sort of resource to send them to as well, because it's got the the Angela Griffin video and so on. Some people prefer it in the post, so you can send them a DVD or the opportunity brochure as well. The advantage of sending them an email is that you're then building up this list of prospects in your contact managers. And I'm a big believer in somebody who says, no, I'm sorry, it's not for me. They don't mean it's never for me. It just means not at the moment. So by having an autoresponder, as I said, big advertising, I use the one called iContact, but I don't think it's particularly better or different to any of the others. Yeah, Andrew and Amanda there, fastforwardopportunity.com, that's another website where you can send people information. So by getting their email address, you can add them to your contact manager and then just keep in touch with emails, once a week, however often you feel comfortable sending it. And then you never know when the time will be right for them. As I said earlier, when their circumstances change, their job might sort of be a bit insecure, and then they'll get an email from you just sort of saying, hi, how are things, hope everything's okay, having a look at the Kleeneze information, and if you know anybody who might be interested, blah blah blah, whatever you might put on there. And people join all the time, months and months and years after they first made contact with us. What else can you send your prospects? Okay, so there's some good glossy paper stuff now. There's how to get started leaflets. There's a company magazine like Team Talk and so on. I think it's a really good idea to send people checks, examples of checks with testimonials. So, a little story. Gavin sends these down all the time. So if you go to Gavin's website, there's loads and loads of bits there. But examples of people just earning 50 quid a week. Maybe somebody earning £1,000 a month or more, because that can replace a full-time job. And an example of somebody earning £5,000 or more. A fantastic lifestyle. There's lots of press articles as well that you can send down. If you go to the DSA within the Kleeneze website, there's examples of press articles that you can send. What else do you need? Okay, it's worthwhile just keeping all of that information about your prospects somewhere handy. So, writing down their name, their contact details and so on, keeping it in a contact manager. Make sure you keep a note of their current status. And what I mean by that is, when you last had a phone call with them, what did you agree? Did you say that you would call them back in a couple of days, or that they're going to call you when they've had a look at it? Or if you didn't get a chance to speak to them but you just left a message, then make a note of that. So that when you're going back through your list to do your follow-ups, you're not having to remember what was the last thing you said to somebody. Events are a good thing as well. If you've got events near you and you're advertising and you've got some prospects, like a local opportunity meeting or something, and you've got a prospect who lives close to you and who's interested, then invite them to that meeting, because those meetings are great ways. There's the local evening meetings, and there's millionaires colleges, there's company events. That just gives them a real exposure to how Kleeneze works, and that's a great way of doing that. If you do invite a guest, just warn them a bit about the dress code. It's normally kind of smart casual. Arrive early so that you can be there before them, and then when you get there and when they turn up, introduce them to other people, make them feel part of a big thing and make them feel welcome. Okay, following up is great. Thanks, Andrew and Amanda. Yeah, openevenings.com, which I know Seamus looks after, I think, has great stuff now. Yes, sorry, following up. Very, 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 very important that once you've spoken to a prospect and sent them some information, you give them a call again in a day or two. And if you just send them the information and then wait for people to call you back and say, yes, I want to join, then you could have a bit of a wait. You'll get 10 times more team members just by ringing them up, just saying, what did you think? Have you had a chance to have a look at it? Have you got any questions? Because you're just building that rapport with them, but just reminding them about it. Sometimes people are, they've got busy lives, they've got a lot going on, they're interested in it, they think, oh yeah, I'll have another look at that. So just you ringing them up will just give them a quick reminder about the business, and they'll say, oh, actually, thanks for calling back. Actually, I'm really interested. Can you just answer a couple of questions for me? And you answer those questions, and then they say, okay, yeah, I think I'd like to give it a go. And then you can obviously move on. So just as I said there, ask them what did they think, let them talk about it. You're not trying to sell it to them, you're just giving them the opportunity to tell you what they thought. And whatever they say, just agree with them. If they're a bit worried about something or they think it might not work, we use what's called the feel, felt, found approach, which basically just means you say, I know how you feel. To be honest, I felt exactly the same when I first started, but what I found was, and whatever it might be. So, and a good one I use, for example, I often get people say, oh no, it won't work near me because we've already got a distributor near me. When I joined, my upline Sue Marshall, who lives about 200 yards away from me, had been in the business 9 years, and we've been getting catalogues from her as customers for ages. And I just sort of say, when I first started, I felt exactly the same. That well, it wouldn't work near me. I'd have to go, to a nearby town or something. But what I found was Sue was just delivering to her regular customers, and I've got loads of my customers now in between all of hers. So that's an example. And a big thing I believe is don't persuade them to join. Just make sure that they decide for themselves. Because if you persuade somebody to join by promising things and saying, oh, don't worry, you'll make loads of money, you'll find loads of customers, then the first time they have a bad day or it rains a bit or they don't have a great pickup, then they're just going to be disappointed and they're going to blame you. They're going to say, well, you told me it was going to be really easy, you told me I'd get loads of customers on my first day, you told me this, you told me that. If they've decided for themselves, they're much more committed and they're more likely to sort of persevere through it. And then when you get somebody who says, yes, I'd like to join, then apart from it being really, really exciting, then the way to sponsor a distributor, and your upline can help with all of this, but always do it with them. There's been a lot come down Easy Reach recently that Gavin has sent down about either doing it face to face with them or over the phone if they're not very close. It'll normally take 20 or 30 minutes plus a few questions, but if all that you do is send them the email to get them signed up and say, click on that link and then follow all the instructions, I guarantee you will lose 80% of the people that come in, because there's so many ways in there that they can just trip up, or they're not sure about something, or they see a document that looks a bit complicated and they start to have second thoughts about it. So always go through it with them, because then you can answer the questions immediately and you can anticipate the questions that they might have. So to get them started, you send them an email from the Kleeneze website. And what I did, which I think is really useful, is the screen snapshots of the screens that they're going to go through are all on the online registration guide. You can find it there in the DSA. So I just print those off, and then I'm kind of going through the screens one at a time with them, as I'm turning my pages over as they're going through the screens at home. Anticipate any questions that they might have, and then once they've signed up, just welcome them to your team, and just try and get an initial idea from them, either at that point or within the next day or two. What is it that they're looking for out of Kleeneze? Now if someone's just joining for £50 a week, then you don't want to bombard them with a lot of team building stuff straight away. But if it's somebody who's looking to replace a full-time income, or they really want serious money, then they might want the team building stuff at the beginning. So just be aware of what they're looking for before you start sending them too much information once they've started. Whew, okay guys, I feel like I've rushed through that a little bit because we had that gap in the middle, so I do apologise. But hopefully you should now know whether or not you have to build a team, why you should try to build a team, what tools you need. A good way to get started by using your warm list as a kind of testing board, and a variety of different WODs that you can use, and that was just a small selection that I put up earlier. What to do when you get a lead, what information you can send to your prospects, and then how to do that follow-up. I hope that all made sense. As I said at the beginning, that was one of a series of 8. Next week we're going to talk about supporting your new team members. So, a quick job for you all. Now that you all know exactly how to get team members, you've got a week to find a new team member, and then next week you'll be right for the training on how to support them. And last but not least, as I said earlier, I do recording of all of these. So I've recorded this one now. I'll pause that in a minute, and I put them all on YouTube. So I'm just going to stop the recording now.